get a lot of questions from people about this whole ice riding thing. And I always wondered what it was about until I tried it, and it was pretty awesome. And so there's some details though, is even if you're not really planning on ever riding on the ice, there's stuff that's worth talking about, but it's just fun. I got some pictures I want to show you and stuff, and a little video. Look at my notes. So I'm going to talk just a bit about, the whole ice riding thing. I mean, there's a culture, I suppose, to it also. What we do, Paul Duvall and Carrie and Todd's here. He joined us last weekend, and Anthony. I don't think Anthony's here. Anyhow, we've got kind of just a small group that we get together with, and we just have fun. Now, if we were racing, like you hear about the Sturbridge ice races, that's a whole other deal. That's like organized, sanctioned. Got to have the right screws in your tires, and you have to have guards. You have to have a fender wrapping around your front wheel and all the way around your back wheel for protection, so that if you run into somebody's leg, you're gonna hit them with the fender and not the spiked tires. However, for us, since we're goofing around, we don't go that. We just have our dirt bikes and put ice tires on them. I'll talk about the ice tires and stuff like that because everybody's really curious about that. So before I go on, because I'll talk about all the stuff, and I can go down my list, but I think this would be a lot more fun if I had it more as a question. So in the chat window, if you want to throw questions out, and then that can sort of drive this a little bit more than me just following a list of things. And if you want to just ask a question, just unmute and go. If nobody does, that's fine. I'll do the list thing. That's fine. Come on, somebody ask me, are you freaking crazy for riding on the ice? Somebody.
Are you freaking crazy for riding on the ice?
Ed, I am so nuts about, I'm nuts about it, put it that way. It's, the thing is that the most dangerous part of riding a motorcycle on the ice with the proper gear is actually walking on the ice. Depending on the ice, the best ice is when it's just, there's no snow cover and it's just glassy smooth. And I've fallen down trying to get on my bike or trying to get off of it. Once I'm on the bike, I'm safe because the tires just have so much mechanical grip. So it's not as crazy as it looks. As far as, if you fall, which, you fall, we do fall, but there's nothing we're going to hit. We're out on some kind of pond or lake and you just slide. Now the ice is hard, which is why you have to be protected. You got to have armor. And so that's the one thing about it. You would be crazy to ride if you didn't have real, some pretty good padding, armor in your shoulders and your knees and all that stuff. I tend to fall and you fall on your hip, and I don't have really good hip armor, so I get bruised up sometimes. But the good thing is I don't generally fall. It's only when I'm really pushing hard and sometimes when the conditions change, because we'll go out on the ice and the ice will be perfect, smooth, beautiful. But as we ride it, we start to make ice chips. And so then it becomes more like snow. And then it starts to pack up into the screws, and then it starts to be more treacherous. And that's where you're going to have a little bit more of a potential for falling. But also it's like anything else, track days or, anything off-road riding is if it's when you push, that's when you're increasing the risk of a fall. But like I say, this, as far as falling goes, this is really not, I don't go into ice riding like a morning of an ice ride with anxiety. Others like dirt riding, I do, because if you fall and you land on a rock wrong or something like that. So I actually have more anxiety about getting hurt riding off-road than I do on the ice. And so that should tell you something. So let's see, somebody had got 3 questions in here. Ever drag a handlebar? It feels like it. Pete, it really does. There are times when it's like new riders on the track when they think they're hanging off like Marquez, right? And then I see the photo that John Owens shot or RC, and they're barely leaned over at all. It's the same thing. It's like when we're leaned all the way over, I swear I'm going to touch my handlebar on the ice, and then I see a photo and it's like not even close. So Drag the foot pegs though. I have a photo showing that. You ride on the road with your spikes, or do you trailer the bike? The spikes, actually, we have to protect them. The tires are really expensive, and we protect them with wraps. And the wraps are like this really heavy nylon double layer. And if you've seen a tire warmers on a racetrack for racers, it's sort of, they look like that. So we wrap the tires around just to even get it to the ice, because we don't want to dull those screws. So no, we don't ride these on the road. And yes, you're going to end up trailering or trucking to the ice. Like I say, even I unload the bike and load the bike with the wraps on, which can be kind of sketchy because there's no traction. So getting it up the ramp or getting it off without sliding is kind of that's one of the most dangerous things about ice riding, is just getting it on and off the truck. I don't have a dirt bike, just a 440-pound Guzzi V7. Yeah, you know what? There are some people that do take like full-on street bikes, and they stud up some tires, some old tires, and they'll go out on the ice. And it's not an unusual thing to do. It is around here. People don't generally do it because most of us have dirt bikes, and a dirt bike is really the way to go. I mean, it's the proper size and tires and all. They're generally, that's the size tires that they make is for a dirt bike. 21-inch front and 17 or 18-inch rear. Are there approved locations? All right, we were going to get to that at some point, and no, there are in New Hampshire, like further north, they do have large lakes that they've been able to ride on for several seasons. I mean, I went up there probably 5 years ago, and it's a very big lake. They actually bring plows out there, trucks with a plow, and clear out the ice. So it's obviously tolerated there. However, there's another ice lake in New Hampshire that they're going through a whole town battle just about, being allowed, riders to be allowed to ride on the lake. So it's a really sketchy thing. It's something that where we ride, it's all under the radar. And that's why a lot of people will ask, hey, where is this? And, we have to be cagey about it because we have to protect it. Like, I live on a lake, and I cannot have anybody any more than like 2 people, 3 maybe, on the lake at a time because of where the location of the lake is, and that I would absolutely get, shut out of this if I were to let other people come. So that's a big problem. That's always a problem. So it's best to find a private lake. There's somebody I know up in New York. He's got a private, a lake on his farm. He's got some multiple acres, and then there's this pond. It's not a big pond, and you don't need a huge pond. And as long as the conditions are right. So that's something I want to talk about too, is the conditions, because there's a very narrow window. Any of you who know about, well, skiers or ice skaters, but ice skaters particularly, let's, talk about that, is that there's usually, one day it's like, oh, the ice is perfect, and then it snows the next day. So it's the same thing with ice riding. And we can tolerate some snow, because Paul and I rode last weekend on Saturday at my place, and there was I don't know, half an inch of powdery snow. It really wasn't bad. It was not a big deal at all. The spikes can absolutely get through that. But if it starts getting thick and kind of slushy and stuff, then it becomes more of a problem. So there ends up being good seasons and bad seasons. The season's not been too bad, but what does that mean? Well, I think we've been riding, I think I told Pete, 5 times, 5 different days this year. And that's actually okay. I'm hoping to get maybe 2 more, but like I know Paul's going away for a little while, and then it's warm this week. So I'm not exactly expecting it to get cold enough for next weekend, because once the ice starts getting soft, then, we go out there on the ice tires and we just chew it up. So it really doesn't work unless the ice is nice and hard. Do you run AMA screws or cheater length? That's something I want to actually talk about specifically. I don't run the cheaters, which are really, really tall spikes. And those things are amazing, though. I've ridden on them, and you can drag a knee on the ice with those things. I don't know if it's possible to crash on those tires. All right, that's a good little load of questions there. I'm going to share my screen. When you talk about motorcycles to use, you can ride almost anything, you know, dirt bike wise. I'm riding an XT 250 now, which is, you know, it's a very basic bike and it's actually pretty fun. You know, suspension's really soft and that can be a problem, especially when the ice gets chewed up. But the KLX actually had set up pretty well and it was a blast, you know. So that's that picture. So here's the falling photos. This is Paul at the top and Carrie at the bottom. And I mean, Paul falls when he's pushing, which he pushes. He has one speed, which is very fast. And he's always in control, but sometimes you can see the ice. It's gotten all chewed up, and now it's gotten pretty soft, so that, you know, it can really pack into your screws. And you can see how we shoveled away in the corners, and that's just part of it too. Sometimes you end up shoveling a lot, and you can see how smooth the ice is where Carrie is, and you know, that's again, it's more dangerous being on your feet than it is to be on the bike. She's standing next to her CRF 150, which is actually probably the most amazing bike for ice riding, because you can pitch that thing in like nuts. It's just so much fun. They're so light, and it's pretty much off throttle, full throttle. You know, actually, it's the same thing with a lot of bikes, even the XT. You know, you don't need to finesse too much because you have so much grip. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but there is so much grip on the on with these tires. Let me go here. So this is Paul, and you can see his technique. I wanted to show you, you know, I mean, he's got the technique down. He is somebody who is really takes his riding very seriously and learns to get the most out of his skills. So he's always experimenting, and we're always, you know, sharing what we've learned. He's typically 5 steps ahead of me, and so I really appreciate it when he, you know, reminds me of things that, you know, technique that I'm not really paying much attention to. I want to talk about the body position and stuff. So this is from last weekend, and that's the XT 250. And you can see I'm actually dragging my foot peg there. That's not a side stand, that's the foot peg. That's there. I actually had to zoom in to make sure that it was, but so that's the type of lean angle that you're looking at, and actually, and more. So again, I feel like, Pete, you were asking about whether I felt like I was dragging my handlebars. At this level, I start to feel like I'm about to drag the handlebars, but look at that. In reality, I got a long ways to go. So I'm going to talk again more about like body position and stuff like that. So this is Paul doing a little bit of the shoveling work while I watch him. And again, there have been times that I've gone out there with the snow blower and blown, you know, a pretty good oval. That's another thing. We run ovals and we also run a road course. And I have a video that I'll show you. Again, there's the KLX 250. Pete, I keep mentioning Pete because we were talking before, but Pete's got my old CRF 250X, which was my favorite bike on the ice because it had a ton of power, and it just, the chassis was perfect for it, and the suspension was great. I went fastest I've ever gone on that bike. Here are the tires. So these are not AMA screws, but they are close to it. The AMA screws are just slightly lower. They're not as tall, but they look just like this. And I buy these tires. A lot of people will say, oh, you know, should I buy screws and do it myself? I wouldn't. It's not that you'll end up with screws all over your ice because they come out, particularly the rear tire with all the torque that you put on it. So these aren't cheap. I think I paid like, I don't remember, $350 per tire, I'm guessing. So it's like $700 for both tires. And they'll last, though, many seasons. The ones I had before, which are the ones that Pete has now, I had those for, I think, 4 years, and they had plenty of life left in them. So again, you got to take care of them, though. And that's where the wraps come in. So as soon as we're done riding, we don't get off the ice. We actually help each other, you know, put the bike up so that we can roll the wheel, and we'll put the wraps around the tires, and then we'll take it off the ice. And sometimes it gets a little sketchy, as like I say, because we have no traction on the wraps. And these tires they're built by this guy named Fredette, and he's from Canada. And I actually have an article on the Riding in the Zone website, and just type in ice in the search field, and that article will come up. And then there's a link to the Fredette tires. Now the tires are interesting. They weigh about 60 pounds because they're more than just one tire. There's another tire on the inside of what you see, and it's a street tire. So when they build them, they cut the outside sidewall of the street tire, and then they put it on the inside of the dirt tire so that then they can screw the screws in and it doesn't puncture the tube. So you can imagine, I mean, when I put those tires on the KLX, it seems like I'm doubling the weight of the bike. They're so heavy. But that's just the way it is. And, they're hard to mount also. And so Paul and I tend to do them together, and it's, we've got it, he's got a machine that makes it, okay to do. There's a couple of people waiting here. Sorry, folks. And so we end up, let me go back. We end up, having to, deal with getting them mounted and then unmounting them. I have not been able to find a set of wheels for the XT. You'd think that would be easy. I do think that I'm not looking, into other years that it might work. But if I have two pairs, another set of wheels, and I'll just keep these mounted, and then I'm good to go. So anyhow, that's about the tires. If anybody has questions about it, I'm going to check the chat every once in a while. Let me see what the last couple, any recommendations on studs to use. Okay, so that's the question, Bill Smith. The cold cutters, they're good. Those are the ones you buy in a bag, and then you spend an afternoon or two putting them into your old dirt bike tires. If that's what you got, great, you'll have a blast. But understand that that's a maintenance thing. It's better in my mind. I've never used the cold cutters. I just know that they aren't going to be the sort of quality that when you buy these, these real ice tires. So the investment is high, but it's a good payoff, I think. Do you stop and clean out the screws when you load up? Some people do, some people don't, because they rust. You can see the screws here, they are rusting. The rust isn't a big deal, but I have seen people have like a stiff brush, and that they'll brush the ice off before they put their wraps on. I don't typically do it. If there's big chunks of snow in there, I'll kind of, get those out, but I don't really worry about that. Okay, that's good for that. If there's any more questions about the tires, I'll come back and we can do that. I want to talk about body position. Let me see. The whole thing about learning. So if you're a street rider or you're a dirt rider and you're kind of wondering, what's the benefit beyond just it being a blast, is there's a lot that I've learned that's increased my sensitivity to riding not only on dirt bikes or flat tracking, but on the street too, particularly on the racetrack, because your two tires are not often in line. So you can see like this photo here that I'm drifting it in, and that's what you do. And that's really the fun part of it, is you get that rear to kick out and you're counter steering, countering with that front wheel. And then you're getting on the gas at just the right time to keep that, to keep the thing kicked out as long as you need to. And also using the rear brake to get it to kick out. So there's a lot of sort of chewing and, chewing gum and walking at the same time.
Big things.
You gotta take some.
I have to take some.
Yeah. There we go. Somebody didn't know that they were there. So traction is obviously something that I get used to the bike not feeling stable under me. And that's a good thing. That's good to learn. Off-road riding, it's that way a lot. Flat track riding is that way all the time. I mean, you're always on the very edge of crashing, it feels like. Controlled crashing, you might want to call it. But the traction is what it's all about. I mean, you're going through a corner and it's just like, whoa, 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 and it's crazy. And you just got to relax and let the bike do its thing and trust the centrifugal force of the tires and the momentum you got. And it's a blast. Now, the way it works is you have to learn to relax. And that's something that comes with, you first getting on it, you're not going to relax at all, even the second or third time. Because when people first do this, they're like barely, you know, your brain just does not register that you can be on a motorcycle on glare ice. And it's when you get out there and you start to like slowly bring your speed up and you lean over more and more, a little bit more, a little bit more. That's when you start to get a feel for, okay, I can actually lean this thing. Well, the next step is to start to really get the bike to kick out and stuff and do it deliberately and in control. Todd, who came in his first time on ice last weekend, he picked it up pretty quick. But the thing that I recommended he do is to just do circles and to lean, so that you get over that fear of that you're going to slide out and just get a real good feel for just how much grip you have. And then by the end of the day, Todd was railing. He was doing great. What else? Vision. You can see here, look at my eyes. Like anything else we do on a motorcycle, I mean, your eyes are such a critical part of riding. There was one time that we had piled up the snow on the outside, you know, because it was enough snow. It actually might have been this day here. And so we had snow on the outside edge of the oval. We had an oval in this case. And it had kind of frozen overnight because we had done this the day before and we rode it the second day. And I was sort of sliding in and going a little wide. And I was like heading right for this icy berm. And that wasn't going to be good if I hit that at the speed we were going, and it was going to high side me over. So instead, I remember it clearly. I said, no way we go in there. I looked into the turn and the bike just hooked right in. I leaned the thing over more and just went and missed the berm. And it was great. So the vision part, you know, you hear us talking about it all the time. It's critical in any type of riding that you do. So again, these are just things that reinforce what we already know. Another thing is the cornering lines. Now we do a road course. You can see here in the background on the left, somebody else is out there. And that's probably because it's part of a road course, and we'll use more of the lake. But the lines are important too. And this is something that I've been working on that Paul's been helping me with, is that, and he's written an article in my website, but he's also incorporated this in the Tony's Track Days curriculum, is the idea of creating a V in the middle of your corner so that you go in, turn it, and then come out, as opposed to railing all the way around. And you kind of define that V a little bit more. So you come in hot, you slow it right down. This is my problem. I tend to go a little too fast in this, you know, at the apex or at the middle, and then you kind of get it turned and then you rock it out. So that's again playing with lines. Even if you did do a sweep in, you want it to come out wide and then bring it in tight, because also as the ice wears and it gets chewed up, you have to sort of change your line as the conditions change. That's something that dirt riders like motocross, you know, riders know all about, because the conditions change. So your line has to change. And you want to put that front wheel. The rear wheel is fine if it's in, you know, the not great traction parts of the ice that isn't great with traction, but that front tire needs to have grip. So you try to put that front tire where there's, you know, there's better ice. What else? So technique, let's talk a bit about that. What do I have for my next? Sorry. Technique. So like dirt riding or flat tracking, same thing, but dirt riding or adventure bike riding even, is that you do not lean to the inside like a road racer. You counterweight and you are on top of the motorcycle. And the reason that is because first off, if the thing starts to slide, you're not now another part of the bike that's going to slide it out from under you. Instead, you're on top of it, and your body is actually pushing the bike, the tires down into the ice, you know, sort of to the center of the earth. So you got to have your body on top of the bike. So you keep that as the bike leans under you, you stay on top of it. So you're on the outside edge of the seat. As far as your foot goes, you weight the outside foot peg, and that the other leg, in this case, my left foot, is sliding on the ice. And, you know, you're not really holding yourself up with it, but it is there. And when the bike does go a little bit out of shape, you just push your foot on it and it'll bring it back up. I did save a crash last weekend by using my foot. But it's also, I did a lap. We were doing a road course here, and I did a lap with my feet on the foot pegs all the way around. And I just, you know, counterweighted just off the seat one way or the other. And it was a lot harder, way hard, because having that leg out helps to really balance you on the bike. So it's not so much about holding yourself up because the tires are doing that. I mean, I could easily ride around at pretty good pace with my feet on the foot pegs. So I'm not holding the bike up. There's plenty of grip with the tires. But it's about balance. It's about being on the bike so you can be loose on the handlebars. Because I'll tell you, this XT, the suspension's soft. So when you get into the ruts and stuff, because again, as we ride more and more, ruts start to develop, and the bike just wallows. You get into it and it starts to just get all out of shape. But I have to let it. If I held onto the handlebars tight, then I would likely fall down. So again, it's another thing about feeling relaxed about the traction and the bike being out of shape. That's a real benefit to feel okay with that. What else? So foot pegs, you're weighting the outside peg, outside edge of your seat. And you see my elbow, my right elbow is up and my left elbow, the down elbow is sort of straight. And that's how you're going to handle that. When you go the other direction, you want to make sure you're holding the throttle like a screwdriver, because if you're doing this and you try to keep your elbow up, you're going to break your wrist. So you're holding it like this. This is, again, something we teach on the racetrack. And, just often that's just something to keep in mind when you're hanging off the bike. So in the same way with you going this way, you're holding onto that throttle this way when you're leaning left. In this case here, I can hold on to it more normal because I'm leaning to the left, I should say. Yeah, right. I'm leaning to the right. Wait a second. Yeah, so this is leaning to the left, but you see my hand? I can't really see it. I really don't have the screwdriver position there so well. At least that, or the light's not showing it right. So anyhow, screwdriver. What else? You want to keep that elbow up. And the reason why is because you're trying to when the bike starts to do things like this, you want to be in the center of that. And you don't want to be to the back well, you can't be too much to the front, frankly. You get nice and tight to the front, get your crotch right up to the gas tank. And so as the bike does this, you're kind of, rotating with it. Is that, yeah, rolling with it. If you're back here, suddenly you're now, going to create more of a problem. So you want to be right up on top on the tank. And again, all your balance, that's why you put your feet on that foot peg and the outside peg, and you weight that peg. Because as the bike does this and that elbow is up, then I can let the bike do this and that, and because the handlebars are going to go sideways, up and down and everything else. I have to be in a position to let it happen and to control the throttle at the same time. What else do I have here? Let's go to the chat for a second. Okay, what kind of boots? Yes, we're going to talk about riding gear just right now. So you can ride with the street helmet. You can ride with a Cordura, jacket. What I have here is I have my pants are what do you call it? Motoport Kevlar pants with armor, in the knees, and actually this has a little hip armor, and they're over pants. I have jeans on under those, and my jacket is a Gerbing jacket, and I do at times use the electric, not the jacket itself. A lot of people say, aren't you cold? Heck no. This is your working, and so more times than not, I mean, it was cold that day. This day here where the photo is, it was like 15 degrees, and we were all like perfectly comfortable in just a few layers. The hands, however, do get cold, and so with his Gerbings, I can plug in my electric gloves, and that's really nice, I gotta say. Paul uses the mitts, the muffs that you can put over your handlebars, and that works for him. Now, speaking of Paul, if we go back to, oops, hang on, trying to go back. I wanted to go here. So you can see what Paul is wearing. He wears his Carhartt pants, and then it might not be, I think this is his snowboarding gear, and he's got armor underneath. He's got his off-road armor underneath. And Carrie's wearing her street gear. And as far as boots go, you can see I do recommend you wear really sturdy boots. You can wear street boots, but remember, you do have tires with spikes on them with the sharp screws. So I wear my intermediate off-road boots. They're kind of like my adventure boots, so they're not quite as heavy as my full-on dirt riding or off-road boots. But you do want to protect your feet. So that's it. And then helmet, like I say, you know, I use this helmet here, this Bell that has a shield, and I have to keep it cracked open, otherwise it fogs up. Paul uses goggles, and I think goggles are probably the better thing, but this does protect my face when it's 15 degrees out and we're doing 45 miles an hour on a road course. We had a couple of road courses that, actually the one I'll show you a video of in a minute, I think it was doing 45 miles an hour at this big sweeping turn. Actually, the day that we took this photo, we had one turn that was, I looked down and it was doing 55 miles an hour and sliding all the way through the corner. So much fun. Let's see. MX boots, yes, that's what I recommend. 100%. I spent a lot of time getting dizzy on Carrie's CRF. Yeah, Pete. Yeah, the CRF 150. If you wanted to get into this, you know, find a CRF 150. You know, it's just the simplest bike to, and then get it. The tires will be a little cheaper because they're smaller, and you will have a blast. And it's easy to load on your truck and everything else. Eli says, I run at all moto gear when I'm on ice. I need to be able to have feeling. Yeah. So that's another thing, is like anything, you want to be able to, you know, feel your controls and everything. The gloves I have are Gerving electric gloves. So it's fine, you know, it worked for me. It's important for me to keep my hands warm. What else? Let me show you this video. Let me get back into, let's stop sharing for a second and then reshare. Where are you? I just posted this on Facebook if anybody's already seen it, but this is a good sort of talking point. Now, it sounds like I'm like squeezing the clutch in and coasting in. I'm not. So once you're rolling, I never squeeze the clutch. I don't even squeeze it for downshifting or upshifting. I just bang the gears. So it sounds like it's full throttle and it's no throttle. And so that's what it sounds like. And when the ice is fresh, if I just shut the throttle, that will kick the rear out. And I don't even have to use the rear brake. But we typically use the rear brake to control that rear end coming in, and then hold the rear brake to a point where we're ready to accelerate out. Let's see, yeah, this is getting pretty chewed up. So go to my YouTube channel that has, there's one particular video I have on there, which is about ice riding basics. And it talks a little bit more about the details and shows a little bit more about the technique, and it shows the wraps and that sort of thing. So anything I'm missing? No, I'm good. Well, glad you all came. Now you know a little bit more about ice riding, and then it's not as crazy as you think it might have. You might have thought it was, maybe. So next week we're going to be doing another technique talk. I think it's going to be on body position.
It is.
It is.
Body
Okay.
next week. Yeah. You have one other question, by the way, in the chat, just so you know.
Okay. Still looks crazy, but fun. Can't wait to try this. Okay. I guess that's it. Anything else, Mike?
No, that'll do it. Looking forward to see everybody next week. And thanks for having this one. And I'm always shocked to see how many people show up. It's something that is, you know, so off topic as this, as ice riding.
Yeah.
Been kind of watching your pictures all season so far and seeing some stuff come up. And it's just really interesting for people. I've had a lot of people who asked about it. So thanks for putting this together.
Nice. Awesome. Well, take care. See you next Wednesday. You want to know about body position.
Thank you both.